BBC World Service and now Witness History with me, Jane Wilkinson. I'm taking you back to 2005 for the story of one of the world's biggest bank robberies. It's a $70 million plot straight out of the movies that made international headlines.
Well, you've heard the expression, dig your way out of debt. Well, these guys took it seriously. It was a big-time heist in Fortaleza, Brazil.
Brazilian police are hunting a gang of thieves who pulled off one of the largest heists in history.
O que eu pude perceber é que
this was a very organized criminal gang and a very dangerous one. So it was a matter of honor for us, the police, not just to identify and arrest all the people who were involved, but also to recover as much money as possible.
do dinheiro.
Meet Antonio Celso de Santos, then a federal police chief, and one of the detectives on the trail of the robbers. But this isn't where our story begins. Let's go back even further, to April 2005, because there's a new business in Fortaleza, a city in northeastern Brazil. Grama Sintética, or synthetic grass, is a landscaping company renting a house close to the central bank. Workers are going door to door, distributing flyers, trying to drum up business. They've even got a van with a company name on the side, and residents quickly get used to their new neighbours.
Se algum curioso
If anybody was curious about the many bags of sand leaving the house, they did not suspect anything because it was a landscaping firm. They worked with synthetic grass.
terra também.
Skip forward 3 months to Monday the 8th of August, and Antonio is on his way to work in Brasilia.
Quando recebi telefonema,
It was the chief of police in Fortaleza. He said the city's central bank had been the victim of a great heist through a tunnel.
através de túnel.
Antonio phones around his colleagues. He knows there's no time to waste.
E perguntei a ele se
I asked, are there any rumors on the streets? Because when there is a crime of this size, the criminal world starts talking. But no one had heard anything.
uma informação.
A plane is put on standby to take Antonio to Fortaleza. He's met at the airport by federal police and whisked off to the city's central bank. In the vault, it soon becomes obvious that these robbers are no amateurs.
Levaram uma
Altogether, the thieves took about 164 million reais. That's enough to fill 3 vans, about 3 tons of money. So immediately we knew this heist took many hours. And they only robbed the containers holding old bills that were not registered by the central bank. Bills that could not be
as notas que
tracked.
não podiam ser rastreadas.
But how did the gang manage to break into a vault with steel reinforced concrete walls a metre thick and then escape with what in 2005 was the equivalent of $70 million?
Os sistemas de segurança.
The security system was not working as it should. The cameras filmed, but they didn't record. And the sensors of the floor were not working either. And in the safe, there was a hole in the floor. It was not so big, about 40 to 50 centimeters in diameter. And below the hole, you could see a tunnel. So we climbed inside to check the conditions. It was around 60 or 70 centimeters in height, just big enough to fit an average size person, as long as you could crawl, but not even on your knees. And we saw there were some ropes tied to buckets, plastic buckets, and they formed a sort of train. And inside on the tunnel floor, there were lots of coins, some 50 reais bills, and many empty drink cans of Gatorade.
Gatorade.
The 80-metre-long tunnel is lined with wood, and electric lights have been strung from the ceiling. Air is being circulated through a tube attached to an air conditioning unit. There's even a makeshift intercom. At the end of the tunnel, the police officers lift a trapdoor. Carefully.
Dali,
It was a house. It was about 90 meters distant from the central bank, and we could see a commercial sign saying synthetic grass. And inside, we found a lot of equipment for drilling and digging soil. Nothing automatic that made a noise. There were also clothes, food, and lots of cans. And they had a kitchen. So we knew the gang stayed in this house for many months. The other 3 rooms were filled with bags of sand and soil that had been removed from the tunnel. After it was full, they sealed each room with a wall of bricks to hide everything.
Uma parede de tijolos.
Like any good detective, Antonio retraces his steps.
E logo
And
na
in the
entrada-
entry of the tunnel, we discovered a card that was like a top-up for a mobile phone. The registration number had been partly scratched off, but we could recover the barcode from the lines that were left, so we could identify the number.
O número desse cartão
It's a breakthrough. They track every number phoned from the mobile, from Friday when the bank closed to when it opened on Monday.
A informação que nós
But
obtivemos
these mobile numbers didn't exist anymore, so we knew the phones had only been bought for the robbery. Once again, it showed these criminals knew the investigation methods that police would
a
use.
polícia utilizava.
That inquiry might have been a dead end, but Antonio and his team have other leads.
Num caso criminoso,
We had also sent some teams to the airport in Fortaleza to see if there was any movement of people leaving quickly. And we got information from an airline company. Some passengers paid for the tickets in cash and used old 50 reais bills. That was the same kind of money that was robbed from the central bank.
subtraído do Banco Central.
So immediately we asked to check these documents, because although criminals are going to use false names, the photos of the documents had to be real because of the airline checks. So we investigated, and the pictures were of some well-known criminals, and they were the first ones to be identified.
A serem identificados.
The detectives begin building up a list of those involved. Some of the gang even have nicknames: Skinny, Bald, the German.
Teve cometido
And Armadillo, he'd already committed a crime using a tunnel, so his specialty was to dig holes and tunnels.
It's also becoming obvious how the tunnel was built. Teams of up to 7 people working around the clock, using garden shovels to dig out the soil.
os criminosos
34 people were directly involved in the heist, and the investigation lasted 5 years because of the amount of criminals involved, and also because of the number of people who helped hide and launder the money. There were a lot. Altogether, more than 150 people were arrested, investigated, and charged. Some of them suffered at the hands of the other criminals. They, or their families, were kidnapped and robbed. Some were even killed.
extorquidos e mortos.
Among those murdered was Luis Fernando Ribeiro, a suspected mastermind of the heist. In October 2005, he was found, shot 7 times. This isn't a Hollywood plot.
É que havia ali pessoas
People watching movies have a fertile imagination, but for us as police officers, we see it as another case, except that the criminals had more time to plan and much more experience than other criminals.
crime do que os demais.
But you got them in the end.
Pois é, então para
Yes,
nós
and this crime was not successful. Most of the robbers regretted it because they spent a long time in jail. So doing the heist, it was not worth it. I would say because of the amount of money, it was the biggest case of my career. It was the largest sum of money stolen in Brazil until that moment, and one of the largest in the world.
e dos maiores do mundo.
Police later recovered around 50 million reais, or $20 million, in cash and property. Antonio Celsus dos Santos is now retired. He was speaking to me, Jane Wilkinson, for Witness History.